The Cardinals avoid the trap game loss immediately following a huge victory.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Now, don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below because, as you all know, that's a great way to help the show continue to grow. It is much appreciated. On today's show, it's all about weekend recap. For the first time in the Brom era, the Cardinals have followed up a huge victory by winning a game that they are supposed to. They avoid the trap game loss, 38-24 W over the Boston College Eagles. Some solid things to identify, but also some concerning things as well. More on that coming up in the first segment. Men's basketball team got punched in the mouth a little bit on Friday night, lost in an exhibition game 90-82 to the 19th ranked Kansas Jayhawks. It's early on, and we will, of course, discuss what all went wrong in this exhibition game, but we're going to have an honest conversation because the debate isn't so much about what went wrong on Friday. It's how significant was the result moving forward. And I have some pretty strong thoughts on that we will bring up in the final segment. But first, today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. So if you rewind a couple days ago back to the Friday show where I claimed that, it was a trap game for the Louisville football team, but I believe that things were going to work in their favor to the point where we weren't even going to sweat this game in the second half, and I was pretty clearly incorrect. It felt uncomfortably similar to the Stanford game last year where Louisville kind of stumbled out of the gate. They found their footing. They got a double-digit lead. They got multiple double-digit leads, but the game was still very uncomfortable at the end. Now, Kewan Brown's late touchdown put this game out of reach, but this was a 7-point game with less than 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. The Cardinals felt like did everything they could to keep Boston College in this game. They had they had multiple self-inflicted mistakes, most of these unforced, but I'll say this. It's relieving to see that, I guess you would say, progress is being made. It sucks that we have to talk about it like this, but hey, look, the past two seasons, you get the victory against a Notre Dame team that you weren't favored to beat, and then you lose immediately to Pittsburgh. In 2024, you lose to a Clemson team that you weren't favored to beat, and then you followed up by immediately losing to Stanford the game after. This season, you take down a Miami team that you were double-digit underdogs against, and automatically the talk was going to go to this Boston College game with a team that was 1-6 coming in, thinking, you're on paper supposed to beat them, but you were supposed to beat Pittsburgh and Stanford. So I'll start out by saying that it's a relief to know that the incredible momentum that the Cardinals captured by winning that game against Miami wasn't all for nothing, right? Like, you didn't automatically lose that momentum just as quickly as you got it. So it wasn't pretty, and I don't want to spend too much time just echoing what all went wrong, but we do have to bring up what led to this game being as uncomfortable as it was. Now, I will say that it seems like through the first, Louisville is now 6-1 on the season. Through the first 7 games, it's pretty clear the Cardinals play to the level of their competition. That's both good and bad, because when you play a team like Miami and you get up for that game and you end up winning that game, it's awesome, but it's also bad because the Cardinals have been more talented than every other team on their schedule outside of the Hurricanes. And outside of Eastern Kentucky, and Bowling Green for the majority of that game. They played down to their competition. James Madison was a close game in the fourth quarter. Pittsburgh was a close game. They had multiple double-digit deficits in that game. Virginia, you were more talented than, and we're seeing that as Virginia continually stumbles into victories over the past couple of weeks. The Cardinals should have won that game. They didn't, and thus we move forward. The game against Boston College, a team that you were better than, and you stumbled to a victory. So I think moving forward, the focus has to be on controlling what you can control and doing the little things correctly. Not creating these mistakes out of nowhere, unforced, the turnovers, the penalties, missing tackles, defending mobile quarterbacks. And we'll get more analytical on tomorrow's show. But the Cardinals in the final 5 games of the season are likely going to be favored in all 5 if they win the week prior. Like if the Cardinals don't drop a game leading into the following week, they're going to be favored to win those games. So I know that Clemson and even SMU to an extent, even though that's a weird team to diagnose at the moment and what they're doing, but Clemson, I think even Kentucky to some extent, not going to be walks in the park. Like you have to handle your business and you have to stop playing down to your competition, which it's pretty clear that you're doing at this point for whatever reason. It's honestly reasons, plural, but Boston College came into this game, not a lot riding on the season, right? It seemed like all hope was lost. They were dealing with injuries. What I saw on Saturday night was a team that had nothing to lose, just going for it, man, just playing free. They didn't have anything to lose. Louisville, of course, had everything to lose, and at times it seemed like the Cardinals played uptight. They started out slow. Boston College had a good game script, 15-play drive to start out. Eagles ended up going up 10-7, and Louisville's offensive spurt at the end of the first half was awesome to see. Now, they did have the missed field goal, but anyway, 21-10. Going into the second half with the football, you felt good. Immediately, the first play of the second half, Isaac Brown fumbles the football, and that was a huge stain on what was an incredible performance from him. He had 205 yards. He's the third player in Louisville history to get 200 yards with less than 15 carries. Malik Cunningham and Tom Lucia both did that in the past. Credit to Kelly Dickey for that. But Louisville's rushing attack was the story on Saturday night, but that fumble from Isaac Brown, third straight game with an absolutely critical fumble. Something's got to get figured out for Isaac Brown. Boston College scored 2 plays later to turn a 21-10 Louisville lead to now 21-17, and all of a sudden things get a little bit more stressful. In that matchup against Boston College, 2 of the season-long issues once again popped up. The turnovers, the penalties. Louisville had 6 penalties for 45 yards, and that doesn't really tell the tale because this could have been worse because Boston College ended up declining some of these penalties. And the penalties weren't as costly as the turnovers. Louisville turned the ball over 3 times on Saturday night. And again, what did we say couldn't happen if you wanted to avoid a trap game, and that was beating yourself? The reality is that, yes, Boston College gets credit for what they did, and they threw a wrench in Louisville's game plan. Louisville kept Boston College in this. Now, thankfully, the Cardinals' defense also forced 3 turnovers from the Eagles. They successfully completed multiple turnover on downs situations. They bent and didn't break in the second half. We had some criticism for Ron English in the first half. Louisville's defense adjusted. They had like one poor drive in the fourth quarter to where they had an opportunity to get off the field, and they did not. But, hey, we will analyze this game further tomorrow. The reality is that you got it done. you're bowl eligible now, and I understand that that's not what you want to get to, but you eliminate the trap game. There's a ton of parity in college football. Hey, sometimes it's not pretty. A W is a W. Thought the rushing attack was fantastic. The defense had some really bright moments. The Cardinals rushed for 317 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground against Boston College. That is a bright spot. Being able to, and don't get it twisted, Boston College had a respectable rushing defense coming into this game, regardless of how bad they were as a collective unit on defense. Running for 317 yards was awesome to see. Miller Moss did not get sacked once in this game. Well, I think he did get sacked by TJ Green once, but for the most part, Louisville's offensive line held up. So more on this when we come back on tomorrow's show. But before we do that, we have to discuss the basketball action. We'll have an honest conversation in the final segment, but first, we'll discuss what went wrong on Friday night for Pat Kelsey's team. You're tuned into Locked on Louisville, covering your team every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. I can't be any more excited than having meaningful football in the month of November for the Louisville Cardinals. The tailgates, rivalries, and energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself, with endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why I used Game Time to get my tickets to the Boston College game. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans, because when I pulled up Game Time, in just a couple taps, I saw all the amazing deals and saw all of the views from the various seats, the Game Time picks, anything that you can see. There weren't any surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Cardinals, thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked on Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube and TikTok, 5 days a week. Your team every day. I think it's pretty safe to say that the final score on Friday night was a little closer than the game actually was. Louisville ended up losing to number 19 Kansas in the first exhibition game of the season, 90-82. And they won the second half. They outscored Kansas 52-44, but the first half was not good. 46-30 in favor of Bill Self's Kansas Jayhawks. And a couple things stand out right away. 2 for 16 from three-point land in the first half of the Cardinals, 12.5%. That just can't happen. They were 31% from the field overall, 9 for 29. Shots just simply, they weren't falling. And when you're not making shots, of course, you're not going to have a good chance to be successful. I know that that's groundbreaking information for you all, but sometimes it comes simply as that. You don't make shots. You're playing a good Kansas team that I thought they were kind of overrated. Or I'm sorry, not overrated, underrated. They were led by a projected top 3 draft pick who was fantastic in the first half. More on that coming up shortly. But you also were going up against a very talented unit. Kansas, outside of Darryn Peterson in the first half, they didn't really do much. Now, Darryn Peterson finished 9 of 15 from the field, 26 points, 6 of 10 from 3. He had 4 rebounds and 2 assists, 5 steals. Look, he's the real deal. He made some incredibly tough shots in the first half. He also made some shots that were either wide open or there were late contests on. Didn't think that Louisville was overall prepared for this Kansas offense. Now, we're going to have an honest conversation about how you can't put much stock into the first exhibition game of the season, but we're going to talk about this game for what it's worth, at face value, from a strictly X's and O's standpoint. No context involved, just from what happened in this game. And looking at Louisville Stars, Ryan Conwell led the way 26 points, but it was 7 of 21 from the field that got him there. 3 of 12 from three-point land. Isaac McNeely, 2 of 8 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3. Michael Brown Jr., 2 of 15, 2 of 10 from three-point land. You see what I'm saying here? Adrian Woolley, 2 of 7. I don't really look at one player and say that, man, he played really, really good. If there is one that I will highlight, it's Javon Hadley, who had 13 points, 4 of 4 from the field, 9 rebounds. He was the one player that I look at and say, he was the bright spot. Kobe Rogers had 6 points, but had some mental mistakes that I'm like, man, can't really do that. 3 turnovers. This was a game where the Cardinals turned the ball over 20 times. It was almost like it was the first game for a brand new team. I mentioned it, right? Can't get too high with a victory. Can't get too low with a loss. Now, the Cardinals got punched in the mouth. One thing that I think they struggled with all night long was defense. They gave up 34 points in the paint, and they went against some pretty stout competition. Flory Badunga, 14 points, 6 rebounds. Bill Self does a great job of developing big men. I think we're going to see him take another step from a promising freshman season. Like, that was a tall task for the Cardinals front court, and I mentioned that early on. And whether it was Sananda Fru, Ali Khalifa, Vangelis Zugris, Louisville struggled with interior defense. The Cardinals missed Case Pryor flat out. It's going to be huge when they get him back because of his interior defense, his toughness in the paint. But it was the first game nonetheless. Seemed like Louisville on the defensive end, they struggled with Kansas's motion. You saw guys moving without the ball significantly and frequently. The Cardinals struggled to defend the pick and roll. Seemed like they were trying to hedge the ball handler, hedge the screen and throw a different look at Darryn Peterson. And what Darryn Peterson do? He just fed the ball down low, and you had to have Louisville rotate help. They were late on those switches, and it gave some easy points to the Jayhawks. And even if it wasn't a direct pass to the roller on the screen, they would kick the ball to the corner and then feed it down. So credit to Kansas for seeing what Louisville was doing and just making the right decisions. Now, on offense, I think the Cardinals struggled for 2 reasons. Number one, this is the first time that these guys are playing with each other in a real basketball setting. But number 2, Kansas was extremely physical. Credit to the Jayhawks. They didn't let the Cardinals get into a rhythm at all. For 40 minutes on Friday night, I don't think that I came away saying that, the Cardinals were in rhythm. Now, there were some runs early on in the second half where 2 threes were made. You cut the lead, I think 10 points or 8 points, one of the two, but it didn't matter because Kansas's defense adjusted. Now, it was just a tough night for the Cardinals across the board. You had guys just flat out miss shots. I think the shot selection at times was questionable. There wasn't really much of a flow with the offense. The defense struggled to keep Kansas off the boards. They gave up too many second chance opportunities. I do think that, for an exhibition game, I wish that it was not called the way it was. Like, there were so many free throws across the board. Louisville had, what was it? They had 39 free throws in this game. Kansas had 33. That is insane work. 60 to 70 free throws combined in an exhibition game is insane work. You weren't even allowing them to play physical. And it was just an inconsistent whistle as well. But whatever. Cardinals lose 90 to 82. The offense inefficient. Couldn't really get going, shooting the basketball. Couldn't find their footing from behind the arc. Defensively, thought that Kansas just played harder. They played smarter, Darryn Peterson was the difference in the first half. He made some huge shots, some tough shots in the first half. And Louisville dug themselves into a hole that they weren't able to get out of. It wasn't all bad, but a good amount of it was. Now, here's the main debate that I've seen sparked from that performance. How much do you put into this? How significant is it? How concrete are the takeaways? And we're going to go back to what I said on Friday with not being able to get too high, not being able to get too low. There are two specific things that can be true at the same time. And it's okay that they are. And we'll discuss what those two things are when we come back on this final segment of this Monday edition. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Well, Louisville wasn't able to cover the 25.5-point spread over the Boston College Eagles, but they did end up winning by double digits. But look, the NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. As you all know, it's that time of year where basketball and football are overlapping. So most episodes throughout the week will have basketball and football talk. And forgive me for not switching my virtual background. I knew something wasn't going right, but forgive me for not switching that. Let's go ahead and go to the KFC Yum Center for our final segment of the show. But I think it's time that we have to have an honest conversation, because you knew that with how much of a microwave society we live in now, if Louisville won on Friday, the praise was going to be high. National championship was going to be imminent. But with a loss, there were going to be some crash outs. There were going to be some doomsdayers pop up. And that's just kind of the world that we live in now. But I think that it was how Louisville lost on Friday. And it wasn't a good performance. But two things can be true at one time. Number one, you can be discouraged by the performance on Friday night. You can admit that it was not a good performance. Louisville did not play well on multiple fronts. You can admit that. But something else can be true at one time, and that's that it was an exhibition game that does not count against your win-loss record, and it happened on October 24th. If Louisville is the same on February 24th as they are on October 24th, by all means, please, I will even create that discussion. But it's early. It's a new team. Other teams take longer to gel, or some teams take longer to gel than others, because one of the rebuttals is, well, Kansas looked good. Kansas didn't look all that great, but they looked better than Louisville, and they got the victory. Kansas did plenty wrong, but they did more right than Louisville. Hats off to Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks. Darryn Peterson was great. Flory Badunga had some great moments. Bryson Tiller, ironically enough, you can't even make that up. Bryson Tiller showed out in the Yum Center. But again, here's why I'm not saying that the sky is falling. Like when I suggested that it's way too early to crash out, I was met with, well, why are we making excuses? We're not. This isn't making excuses, because again, we are acknowledging that it was not a good performance on Friday night. But I'm sorry, Card Nation, I'm not going to sit here on October 24th with as much talent that the Cardinals have on paper and use the first game as a vehicle to support this point that Louisville's just not a good team now. Because here's the thing. Historically, what have we seen? These high-level scrimmages that have really been secret, where teams get blown out, they haven't been a foreshadowing measure for the rest of the season, because the preseason number 1, preseason number 2, preseason number 7, preseason number 8 also lost in exhibition play. And a couple of those lost to unranked teams. So, yeah, I mean, maybe rankings are a little skewed early on. Maybe it's too early for rankings, but is the season over for those teams as well? Like, guys, we've got to be honest and we have to be understanding. Like, again, was it great to watch on Friday? No. But am I sitting here completely concerned? Also, no. Because is this team as good as they are on paper shooting the basketball? You're telling me that all these guys are going to be flops? No. Is Michael Brown Jr. suddenly a bust after one bad performance, which was his first performance? Absolutely not. Is Ryan Conwell a bust? No. Is Isaac McNeely suddenly a bad player in the ACC? No. Guys, it's going to take some time to gel. And they're going to get better and better. I firmly believe it. You just can't allow one game, which is, you can't even really claim it to be a sample size. It's one game against a good Kansas team. Maybe if it's a month later, here we are in early December, and we're still having some really tough conversations. Sure. I mean, I'm not pleased with what I saw on Friday, but I'm sorry. I feel like a broken record, but I understood after Friday's game how we were going to have to come onto this show and talk. I understood the conversation that we were going to have because I saw a bunch of, well, sky is falling talk. Season isn't over before November starts. Get real. Now, do you have to see a better version of this team moving forward? 100%. This team's got to be better. I don't think anybody's arguing that this level of play for the Cardinals isn't really sustainable for high levels of success. And I understand where the concern is coming from, because last year you struggled in the non-conference slate. You basically ran the table in the ACC, and it didn't matter because people already thought that you were a mid-team beating up on bad competition. Yeah, you've got to play good in the non-conference slate because the perception of your team relies on it. I get it. I understand. We talked about that in so many different episodes, but I'm just not worried at the moment because of a loss to Kansas. Like, I'm just not. Now, the Cardinals will be back in action tomorrow night when they play Bucknell, and we will have some more preview talk, and we'll hope that, hey, this team looks better against Bucknell on Tuesday. Yes, they have some tough challenges coming up. I get it. They've got to play better. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the criticism is so loud and the concern is so prevalent, is because we're just a couple weeks away. We did beat Purdue by double digits in an exhibition game. Like, I get it. I'm not sitting here saying that it's not justified to have some concern, but there's a fine line between being concerned by that performance and then just automatically making these rash and harsh generalizations that this is not a good basketball team. It's way too early to be throwing out those, just overall general blanket statements. Like, I'm sorry. We're going to move on in hopes that we see a better version of this team on Tuesday. And I would imagine that we will. Everything that went wrong seemed to have went wrong, and you still only lost to Kansas by 8 points. So call me a sunshine pumper. Call me a doomsdayer. I don't care. I'm just trying to keep it real, guys. Not ideal Friday night performance, but I'm not going to sit here and panic. At least not yet. That's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. When we come back, we're going to get a little bit more analytical into the result from Saturday night. Louisville football 14-point victory over the Boston College Eagles, and we will preview the upcoming exhibition game on Tuesday against Bucknell. Thanks for tuning in. You're Locked on Louisville, covering your team every day. Go Cards.